Chapter 7. The Stapletons of Merripit House. The following morning, the sunlight flooded in, throwing watery patches of colour from the coats of arms which covered the windows. The dark panelling glowed like bronze in the golden rays.
I guess it's ourselves and not the house that is to blame.
It is quite beautiful. A curious thing, Sir Henry, but did you happen to hear someone, a woman, I think, sobbing in the night?
I thought that I heard something, but concluded that it was a dream.
I heard it distinctly.
I shall call Barrymore. Now that I think about it, I passed Mrs. Barrymore in the corridor. She had swollen lids. I assume perhaps she had an allergy of some sort.
You rang, sir?
Barrymore, did you happen to hear a sob during the night?
No, sir.
Oh, I see. It's just that I saw Mrs. Barrymore, and she had swollen lids.
It is the pollen, sir. It is particularly acute at this time of the year.
After breakfast, I embarked on a pleasant walk of 4 miles along the edge of the moor, leading me to a small grey hamlet. The postmaster had a clear recollection of the telegram sent to Barrymore.
Certainly, sir. I had the telegram delivered as directed.
Who delivered it?
My boy here, James! You delivered that telegram to Mr. Barrymore at the hall last week, did you not?
Yes, Father.
Into his own hands?
Well, he was up in the loft at the time, but I gave it to Mrs. Barrymore and she promised to deliver it at once.
Did you actually see Mr. Barrymore?
No, sir. He was in the loft.
If you didn't see him, how do you know for certain that he was in the loft?
Well, surely his own wife ought to know where he is.
Didn't he get the telegram? If there's any mistake, it's for Mr. Barrymore himself to complain.
It was clear that in spite of Holmes's ruse, we had no proof that Barrymore had not been in London all the time. I started walking back along the grey, lonely road.
Dr. Watson!
Hello?
Excuse my presumption, Dr. Watson, but here on the moor we are a homely folk. Do not wait for formal introductions.
You must be Mr. Stapleton of Merripit House.
I am.
Your net and box have told me as much, for I knew that Mr. Stapleton was a naturalist. But how did you know me?
I have been calling on Dr. Mortimer. He pointed you out to me as you passed. I thought that I would overtake you and introduce myself. I trust that Sir Henry is none the worse for his journey.
He's very well, thank you.
We were all rather afraid that after the sad death of Sir Charles, the new baronet might refuse to live here. Sir Henry has, I suppose, no superstitious fears in the matter.
I think that it is unlikely.
Of course, you know the legend.
I have heard it.
Does Mr. Holmes believe that some foul play took place?
Mr. Holmes?
The records of your detective have reached us even here, and you could not celebrate him without knowing yourself. If you are here, then it follows that Mr. Sherlock Holmes is interesting himself in the matter.
I assure you that I'm simply here upon a visit to my friend, Sir Henry.
Of course. A moderate walk along this moor path brings us to Merripit House. Perhaps you will spare an hour that I may have the pleasure of introducing you to my sister?
Yes, thank you. That is very kind.
It is a wonderful place, the moor. You can hardly imagine all of the secrets which it contains.
You know it well, then?
I have only been here 2 years, but I should think there are few who know it better than I do.
Is it hard to know?
Oh, very hard. You see, for example, this great plain to the north here, with the strange hills breaking out of it. Do you observe anything remarkable about that?
It would be a rare place for a gallop.
You would naturally think so, and the thought has cost several their lives before now. That is the great Grimpen Mire. A full step yonder means death to man or beast. Only yesterday I saw one of the moor ponies wander into it and never come out.
And you say you can penetrate it?
Yes, there are 1 or 2 paths which a very active man can take.
Why would you want to?
There are some rare plants and butterflies, if you have the wit to reach them.
I should try my luck someday.
For God's sake, put such an idea out of your mind. It is only by remembering certain complex landmarks that I am able to do it.
Lower? What is that?
That, according to the peasants, is the Hound of the Baskervilles calling for its prey.
What do you think is the cause of so strange a sound?
Well, perhaps it was a bittern booming?
A bittern?
It is a very rare bird, practically extinct in England now.
It is one of the eeriest sounds that I've ever heard.
The moor is a rather uncanny place. Look at the hillside yonder. They are the homes to prehistoric man who lived thickly on the moor. And as no one in particular has lived there since, we find all his little arrangements exactly as he left them. Oh, excuse me for an instant. It is surely a cyclopedes.
A small fly or moth had fluttered across our path, and in an instant Stapleton was rushing with extraordinary energy and speed in pursuit of it. I heard the sound of steps, and turning round found a woman near me upon the path.
Go back.
I beg your pardon?
Go back to London, instantly.
Why should I go back?
I cannot explain, but for God's sake, do what I ask you and never set foot upon the moor again.
Hello, Beryl.
Jack, you are perspiring.
Yes, I was chasing a cyclopedes. Forgive me, Dr. Watson, but he is very rare and seldom found in the late autumn.
Are you not Sir Henry Baskerville?
No, I'm his friend, Dr. Watson.
Oh, we've been talking at cross purposes.
Why? You have not had very much time for talk?
I talked as if Dr. Watson were a resident, instead of being merely a visitor. Oh, it cannot matter much to him whether it is early or late for the orchids. But you will come for lunch.
It was a short walk to Merripit House. It was a bleak moorland house surrounded by an orchard. But the trees were stunted and nipped, and the effect of the whole place was mean and melancholy.
Strange spot to choose, is it not? Yet we managed to make ourselves fairly happy, do we not, Beryl?
Quite happy.
I had a school in the North Country. However, the fates were against us. A serious epidemic broke out in the school and 3 of the boys died. It never recovered from the blow. If it were not for the tragic events, I should rejoice. For, with my strong taste for botany and zoology, I find an unlimited field of work here. And my sister is as devoted to nature as I am.
Is it not ever a little dull? Less for you, perhaps, than for your sister.
No. I am never dull.
We have our books, our studies, and we have interesting neighbours. Oh, on that point, do you think that I should intrude if I were to call tomorrow morning and make the acquaintance of Sir Henry?
I'm sure that he would be delighted.
Then perhaps you would mention that I propose to do so.
After lunch, I made my excuses, as I was keen to get back to my charge. It seemed, however, that there must have been some shortcut, for before I'd reached the road, I was astounded to see Miss Stapleton sitting upon a rock by the side of the track.
I have run all the way in order to cut you off, Dr. Watson. I wanted to say to you how sorry I am about this stupid mistake.
Why was it that you were so eager that Sir Henry should return to London?
A woman's whim, Dr. Watson.
Please be frank with me, Miss Stapleton. Tell me what it was that you meant, and I will promise to convey your warning to Sir Henry.
Oh, you make too much of it, Dr. Watson. Sir Charles was deeply impressed with the curse, and when this tragedy came, I naturally felt there must be some grounds for the fears which he had expressed. I was distressed, therefore, when another member of the family came down to live here, and I felt that he should be warned of the danger.
But what is the danger?
You know the story of the Hound.
I do not believe in such nonsense.
Oh, but I do. If you have any influence with Sir Henry, take him away from this place.
Miss Stapleton, if you meant no more than this when you first spoke to me, why should you not wish your brother to overhear what you said?
My brother is very anxious to have the hall inhabited, for he thinks it is for the good of the poor folk upon the moor. He would be very angry if he knew that I've said anything which might induce Sir Henry to go away. I must get back now, or he'll miss and suspect that I've seen you. Oh, goodbye, Dr. Watson.
Chapter 8. First Report of Dr. Watson. As I walked back, I reflected that the longer one stays here, the greater the sense that the moor sinks into one's soul, with its vastness and its grim charm. Either side of me, I observed the houses of prehistoric people. The strange thing is that they should have lived so thickly on what must always have been the most unfruitful soil. As promised, Stapleton came over the following morning.
I trust that my visit is not an imposition.
No, on the contrary. I'm eager to make the acquaintance of my neighbors.
Yes, there are sadly not too many to meet. I had hoped to invite you to lunch with my sister and myself.
It would be my pleasure. I've been studying the legend of Hugo Baskerville. Would you happen to know the spot where the horrific event took place?
It is an excursion of several miles.
I realize it's an imposition, but if at some point you have the time, would you show me?
I think it is a capital idea. Why not this morning? Afterwards we can pay a visit to Merripit House.
Stapleton led us through a short valley between rugged tors which led to an open grassy space. In the middle of it rose two great stones, worn and sharpened at the upper end, resembling huge corroding fangs of some monstrous beast.
What are your thoughts on the legend?
Sir Charles certainly believed in it.
And you?
I prefer to focus on nature. But there are a number of similar cases where families have suffered from what seems like some evil influence.
Such as?
Why don't we head to Merripit House? I can recount them on the way.
We were greeted upon arrival by Miss Stapleton. She and Sir Henry took to each other at once.
Miss Stapleton.
It is Sir Henry, I presume. I wanted to make certain this time.
Dr. Watson mentioned to me the case of the mistaken identity. I hope that now you have met the real Sir Henry, that I am not a disappointment.
Not in the least, Sir Henry.
Sir Henry referred to Miss Stapleton again and again on our walk home, and since then hardly a day has passed that we've not seen something of the brother and sister. The following day I called on Mr. Frankland of Laughter Hall. He was an elderly man with a passion for the British law.
The locals are a fickle type. They do not seem to comprehend that I do not engage in favoritism, but I am concerned rather for the cold justice of the law.
What nature of cases have you fought?
All various. Rights of way, trespassing, planning violations. The locals will sometimes carry me in triumph or else burn an effigy. They are simple folk. Fighting for justice is, however, not a cheap endeavour, and sadly, my funds are not what they were.
Apart from the law, he seemed a good-natured person. He was curiously employed at present, for being an amateur astronomer, he had an excellent telescope with which he swept the moor all day in the hope of catching a glimpse of the escaped convict. Later that day, I dined with Sir Henry. I informed him how the matter stood regarding the telegram, and he at once, in his downright fashion, called for Barrymore.
Did the boy deliver it into your own hands?
No, sir. I was in the box room at the time, and my wife brought it up to me.
Oh, did you answer it yourself?
No. I told my wife what to answer. Sir Henry, I trust that your questions do not mean that I've done anything to forfeit your confidence.
No, not at all. You and your wife are indispensable. I shall be truly sorry to see you both leave my employment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. By the way, sir, the rest of your London wardrobe has arrived.
Well, thank you, Barrymore. Now that my new wardrobe is here, I intend to give away many of my old clothes. If you or anyone you know could have use of an item, would you please make the arrangements?
Yes, sir.
About 2 a.m, I was aroused by a stealthy step passing my room. I rose, opened my door, and peeped out. I could merely see the outline, but his height told me that it was Barrymore. I waited until he passed out of sight and then followed him. He reached the end of the corridor and entered one of the rooms. I crept down the passage as noiselessly as I could and peeped round the corner of the door. He was crouching at the window with the candle held against the glass. For some minutes he stood watching intently. Then he gave a deep groan and with an impatient gesture put out the light. I made my way back to my room. Long afterwards, when I'd fallen into a light sleep, I heard a key turn somewhere in a lock, but I could not tell from whence the sound came. Chapter 9. The Light upon the Moor. I had an interview with Sir Henry in his study after breakfast, and I told him all that I'd seen. He was less surprised than I'd expected.
I've heard his steps on 2 or 3 occasions in the passage, just about the same hour.
Perhaps then he pays a visit every night to that particular window.
Well, if so, we should be able to shadow him and see what it is that he's after.
I'm certain Holmes would do the same.
Then it's decided. We shall sit up in my room tonight and wait until he passes. For now, I must leave on an urgent appointment.
Sir Henry stood to leave. I did the same.
What? Are you coming, Watson?
That depends on whether you're going on the moor.
I am.
Well, you know what my instructions are.
My dear fellow, Holmes, with all of his wisdom, could not have foreseen some things which have happened since I have been on the moor. In this instance, I must go out alone.
This put me in a most awkward position, as Holmes's instructions on the matter were quite clear. I therefore set off at once in the direction of Merripit House. I spied Sir Henry about a quarter of a mile off with Miss Stapleton by his side. To act the spy upon a friend was a hateful task. Still, I could see no other course than to observe him from the hill and to clear my conscience by confessing to him afterwards what I'd done.
I'm so glad to finally be able to speak with you alone.
Sir Henry, do you wish me to be happy?
More than anything.
Then leave this place.
I have no intention to leave unless you arrange to come with me.
Sir Henry, believe me, there is nothing I would like more. It is just...
It was not long before I realised that I was not the only witness. Stapleton was quickly approaching the couple, butterfly net in hand.
What is the meaning of this?
Excuse me?
How dare you force your attentions upon my sister? Can you not see how utterly distasteful to her they are?
Distasteful? Now look here.
You think because you are a baronet that you can do whatsoever you please.
My feelings toward your sister are nothing that I'm ashamed of. I tell you, I'm intending on making her my wife.
Your wife? How dare you? You will not see each other again. I forbid it. Beryl, come with me immediately.
I was deeply ashamed to have witnessed so intimate a scene without my friend's knowledge. I ran down the hill and met him at the bottom.
Watson, where have you dropped from?
Sir Henry, I can only apologise. I followed you and inadvertently witnessed your interaction with Stapleton. Please be assured that my motivation was only your personal safety.
You would have thought that the middle of a prairie a fairly safe place for a man to have a private rendezvous, but apparently the whole countryside seems to have been out to watch. Did you see her brother come out on us?
Yes, I did.
Did he ever strike you as being crazy?
I can't say that he ever did.
What's the matter with me anyhow? Is there anything that would prevent me from making a good husband?
I should say not.
I've only known her these few weeks, but from the first I just felt that she was made for me, and I'll swear she was happy when she was with me.
I could offer no sensible explanation for Stapleton's behaviour. Our conjectures, however, were set at rest by a visit from Stapleton himself that very afternoon.
I cannot forget the look in his eyes when he ran out at me this morning. But I must allow that no man could make a more handsome apology than he has done.
Did he give any explanation of his conduct?
He said that his sister is everything in his life, and the thought of losing her just sent him into a frenzy.
That is understandable.
Any case, he said that he recognizes how foolish he was and that he would withdraw all opposition if I would promise for 3 months to cultivate the lady's friendship, and during that time, without claiming her love. This I promised, and so the matter rests.
Yeah, that all sounds very satisfactory.
Also, he invited us to dine with them at Merripit House next Friday.
Later that evening, as arranged, Sir Henry and I sat up. The clock struck 1, then 2. We'd almost given up when we heard the creak of a step in the passage. We were just in time to catch a glimpse of the tall, black-bearded figure pass through the same door as before. When we reached the door and peeped through, we found him crouching at the window, candle in hand.
What are you doing here, Barrymore?
Nothing, sir. It was the window, sir. I go round at night to see that they are fastened.
Come now, Barrymore. No lies. What were you doing?
I was doing no harm, sir.
Why were you holding a candle to the window?
Please don't ask me, Sir Henry. I give you my word, sir, that if it concerned anyone but myself, I would not try to keep it from you.
He must have been holding it as a signal. Let us see if there's any answer. I took the candle and held it to the window. There! A light! In that opening between the 2 trees.
Come, speak up.
It is my business and not yours. I will not tell.
Then you shall leave my employment right away.
Very good, sir. If I must, I must.
And you go in disgrace. Your family has lived with mine for over 100 years under this roof. And here, I find you in some deep, dark plot against me.
Oh, no, sir. No, not against you.
Mrs. Barrymore.
We have to go, Eliza. That is an end of it.
Oh, it's my doing, Sir Henry, all mine. He has done nothing except for my sake.
Speak out then.
The escaped convict, sir, is my unhappy brother.
Your brother is the Notting Hill murderer.
Yes, sir. My maiden name is Selden. We cannot let him perish at our very gates. The light is a signal to him that the food is ready, and his light out yonder is to show the spot to which to bring it.
That's the truth, sir. Now you've heard it, and you will see that if there was a plot, it was not against you.
To others he is a vicious, desperate animal, but to me, sir, he's still the curly-haired boy that I nursed and played with as an elder sister would. When he dragged himself here one night, weary and starving, with the warders hard at his heels, what could we do? We took him in, fed him and cared for him. Then you returned, sir, and he hid on the moor to wait for the hue and cry to pass. Every day we hoped that he was gone, but as long as he was there, we could not desert him.
Well, Barrymore, I cannot blame you for standing by your own wife. Forget what I've said. We shall talk further about this matter in the morning.
When they were gone, we looked out of the window again. Far away in the black distance, there still glowed that one tiny point of yellow light.
I wonder he dares. How far do you think it is?
Out by the cleft tor, I think.
Not more than a mile or 2 off.
Hardly that.
By thunder, Watson. I'm going out to take that man.
The same thought had crossed my own mind. It's not as if the Barrymores took us into their confidence. The secret had to be forced from them.
The man is a danger to the community. We're only doing our duty, putting him back where he can do no harm.
He would think nothing of attacking our neighbours, Dr. Mortimer, the Stapletons.
Get your revolver. The sooner we set off, the better, as the fellow may put out his light and be off.
In 5 minutes, we were standing outside of the door. We hurried through the dark shrubbery amid the dull moaning of the autumn wind and the rustle of the falling leaves. The light still burned steadily in front. We must close in on him rapidly, for he's said to be a desperate fellow.
My God. What's that, Watson?
I don't know, but I heard it once before on the moor.
Isn't that the direction of the Grimpen Mire?
It is?
And what was it?
Stapleton was with me when I heard it last. He said that it might be the calling of a strange bird.
We both know it was no bird.
It seemed to come from miles away, over yonder, I think.
It was a hound. My God. You don't believe that there can be some truth in all these stories, do you, Watson?
No, I do not.
I do not think that I am a coward, Watson. But that sound seemed to freeze my very blood.
I'd be lying if I didn't admit the same. Shall we turn back?
No, by thunder. We have come out here to get our man, and we will do it.
We approached slowly in the darkness. Crouching behind a boulder of granite, we gazed over it at the signal light with no sign of life near it.
What shall we do now?
Wait here. He must be near.
There!
having chanced upon us, Selden set off at speed. I raised my gun.
Dr. Watson,
I cannot shoot an unarmed man in the back.
let's get after him.
We were both swift runners, but we soon found out that we had no chance of overtaking him. Finally, we stopped and sat panting while we watched him disappearing into the distance.
It's no use. We can pick this up tomorrow.
Wait, Sir Henry,
What?
there. It's gone now. Did you see it?
I didn't see anything.
It was the figure of a tall, thin man.
What on earth could someone else be doing out here?
A warder, no doubt. Moore has been thick with them since this fellow escaped.
Yes, that must be it. We are both too exhausted to pursue. Let's go back.